If you wake up most mornings feeling foggy or your joints ache before you get out of bed and you've heard about putting a clove in your coffee, listen. One clove dropped in by itself doesn't really do much. That's the way most seniors are doing it. And that's why it isn't working. I want to do something different. The right way uses 3 cloves, not 1. I'm giving you the whole method right now, not after 5 minutes of build-up, not after asking you to subscribe. But before we even start, a quick word. I'm not a doctor, and nothing I say replaces a conversation with yours. This is information shared between friends, not prescription. Take 3 whole dried cloves from the spice aisle. Whole, not ground. Put them in a small pot with about 10 ounces of water. Bring it to a soft boil, lower the heat, and let it simmer for 5 minutes. Strain the cloves out. Use that water to brew your morning coffee however you normally do it. French press drip pod machine. It doesn't matter. Drink it black on an empty stomach. That's the method. 3 cloves, 5 minutes, 1 cup. But please stay with me, because there are 3 small mistakes that can cancel everything I just told you. 3 things nobody warns about. And I want you to know all 3 before tomorrow morning. Now this is the part most channels skip. Why does this method matter? Why not just sprinkle ground cloves into your cup? Cloves are one of the hardest spices in your kitchen and the active compound that does the work. Eugenol sits inside a tough, oily structure that cold water simply cannot break apart, no matter how long you stir. A coffee pod cannot reach it either. You need heat and time. Think of making tea from a tough leaf. 2 minutes, you taste nothing. 20 minutes, you have boiled away what you wanted. With cloves, the window is around 5 to 7 minutes of gentle simmering. After that, eugenol begins to break down from the heat itself. So more is not better. More is worse. Whole cloves matter too. The pre-ground powder on store shelves has often been sitting there for a year, slowly losing its oils. Whole cloves keep their potency longer because the protective shell stays intact. When you boil them fresh, you pull compounds that are still alive. The method is not magic. It is good chemistry the way our grandmothers understood without needing to call it chemistry. And before we get into those 3 mistakes themselves, one quick favor. Just one. Then we'll dive into the part that really matters. If anything in this video so far has been useful to you, the kindest thing you can do is hit subscribe, not for me, for YouTube. It tells the algorithm to show this kind of careful information to other seniors who need it. That's all I ask. Now back to the part that really matters. Mistake 1 is the one I see most. The mistake almost every senior makes the very first time they try this. And it gives you nothing, no real benefit. Just the smell of cloves and a slightly bitter cup. You think you tried it, but you didn't. Let me show you what's really happening. Mistake 1. Dropping a whole clove or 2 into a cup of already brewed coffee and stirring. I see this all the time. Someone watches a video, picks up a single clove from the cabinet, drops it in, gives it a stir. Waits a minute, then drinks. They feel nothing. They decide the whole idea is nonsense and move on. The problem is what we just discussed. Whole cloves cannot release eugenol into hot brewed coffee. The water is no longer hot enough. Coffee is below boiling by the time it reaches your cup. There is no simmering action to break the oily shell. You get aroma, a hint of flavor. But the medicinal compound stays locked inside its tough shell, and everything you actually wanted from this little morning ritual goes straight into the trash, undissolved with the spent clove. The fix is simple. If you cannot do the full decoction in the morning, at least crush 1 clove with the flat side of a knife before adding it to fresh, just poured hot coffee. Let it sit for 3 minutes before drinking. That gives you maybe 60% of the benefit. Better than zero. But please never just drop a whole clove in. That is throwing money even 10 cents at a time into the trash. Mistake 2 is the opposite problem, and the one I have a soft spot for because it comes from such a good intention. You hear cloves are powerful. You think, well, if 5 minutes is good, 15 must be better. So you let the pot simmer while you make breakfast, read the news, and tend to whatever the morning brings until 20 minutes have passed, and you finally remember to strain and drink. You feel proud for being thorough. The trouble is, eugenol does not work that way. It is what scientists call a thermolabile compound. Fancy word for something that breaks down when heat goes on too long. Past about 7 or 8 minutes of active simmering, you are no longer extracting eugenol. Instead, you are slowly destroying the very compound you intended to capture, while bitter tannins start to leak through and mask what is being lost. Set a timer. 5 minutes of gentle simmer. The surface should barely tremble, not roll like an angry sea. Strain promptly. Use the water right away while it is still warm. If you forget and the timer reaches 10, do not feel terrible. The next batch will work better. Mistake 3. This is the one nobody talks about, not even most channels covering cloves. And in my experience, this is the mistake that costs you the most. Drinking your clove coffee right alongside breakfast. Most seniors I know have one routine. The cup sits next to the toast, the eggs, the oatmeal, the slice of fruit, and you sip your way through the morning paper, pausing to take a bite, and then another sip the way you've been doing it for 40 years. But here's what happens. The polyphenols in coffee, the chlorogenic acid, the eugenol from your decoction, all bind to the proteins and starches in your food before they reach your bloodstream. A piece of buttered toast can absorb a remarkable amount of those compounds. The clove water you took the trouble to prepare. Half of it never makes it into your system. It gets carried out with the meal. The fix is small but important. Drink the clove coffee first. By itself. On an empty stomach. Wait 15-20 minutes before you eat. That short pause gives the active compounds a clear runway into your blood. Then eat your breakfast as normal. Same coffee, same clove, same 10 cents, but 3 or 4 times more actual effect, simply because of when you drink it. Now, before we go any further, who this is for and who needs to be careful. Because this is not for everyone. If you take a blood thinner, whether warfarin, apixaban, or even a daily high-dose aspirin you've been on for years, please talk to your doctor before adding clove decoction to your morning routine. Eugenol has a mild blood-thinning effect of its own. Combinations matter even when each piece feels harmless. If you have GER, an active stomach ulcer, or chronic acid reflux, the coffee itself may already be too much for you. Adding clove can make the burning worse, not better. This is not the routine for you. If you are managing your blood sugar with medication, especially insulin, the chlorogenic acid in coffee combined with eugenol may shift your numbers. Not in a dangerous way for most people. But you should monitor more carefully in the first 2 weeks and tell your doctor what you are trying. And if you are over 75 or on 5 or more daily medications, please ask before you add this. The kitchen is not always more innocent than the pharmacy. What I'm about to share next is the part that surprised me most when I first looked into the actual research. I expected vague claims. What I found was something else. There is a study from 2014 published in Nutrition Research that looked at chlorogenic acid, the main polyphenol in coffee, and its effect on blood sugar in adults over 55. About 40 participants. The result was a small but measurable improvement in fasting glucose after 8 weeks of regular consumption. Not dramatic, not life-changing, but real and consistent. A separate set of studies conducted mostly in India and South Korea over the last 15 years has looked at eugenol from clove for its effect on inflammation markers. The early evidence suggests eugenol may help moderate the inflammatory response, particularly in pathways linked to joint stiffness and cardiovascular aging. I share this not because the science is settled. It is not. I share it because what is in your spice cabinet is worth taking seriously. The early evidence points in the right direction. Modestly, but it points there. And modest repeated daily for years is how most real change happens after 60. Let me tell you about Eleanor. 66 years old, lives in Pennsylvania. She wrote to me about 3 months ago. Her morning routine had been the same for 15 years. 2 cups of black coffee, a slice of toast, sometimes a banana. By mid-morning, she said she always felt the same heavy energy crash she'd been blaming on poor sleep for years, the kind that left her thoughts foggy and her movements slow until lunchtime. She tried the clove decoction the way I described. 3 cloves, 5 minutes on an empty stomach. After 2 weeks, she noticed something small. The mid-morning crash was gone. Not because the coffee was stronger, because she suspected the steadiness had improved. She is not a case study. One woman in one kitchen sharing one experience. I share it not as proof, I share it as encouragement. Sometimes the smallest changes, a 5-minute simmer, a shift in when you drink, give back more than they ask. I want to be honest about something most channels won't say. This is not a cure for anything. It is not going to reverse a chronic condition you've been living with for 20 years. It will not replace any medication your doctor has prescribed. And for some of you watching, it may not do very much at all. Bodies are different. What helps one person can do nothing for another. That is not failure, that is just biology. What I can tell you is this. The method is safe for most healthy seniors over 60. The cost is small. The risk used as I described is low. Give it 8 to 10 weeks of honest practice, without sugar, without milk, and without breakfast at the same time. And your body will tell you whether this small ritual makes a real difference for you, or whether it simply isn't the right tool for your case. That's the whole picture. 3 cloves, 5 minutes, 1 cup. Drunk plain on an empty stomach away from breakfast. Not magic. A small habit done with care, repeated until your body has time to respond. If a friend or family member over 60 is still drinking instant coffee with sugar every morning, this might be one of the simplest things you can share with them today. Tomorrow morning, when you reach for the kettle, remember the timer. 5 minutes, not 15. That's the difference between making something and making nothing. Take care of yourself, my friend. We'll talk again soon.